We'll need to create df3 and df4 again. Let's output df3 and we'll see that what we have is 3 rows and 4 columns. df4 is going to be 4 rows instead of 3 and 5 columns instead of 4. So if we add these together, what we're going to expect is to get a column of empties here, because this 5th column will not have a match. And we'll also get a row of empties here, because this row will not have a match. But before we add them together, let's take DataFrame 3 and let's go into row 1 and column B, so we're targeting this value, and we're going to manually insert a null value at this point. So let's run this and output it. And we now have an additional empty that we can use in our demonstration. So at this point, let's go ahead and add these two together. As expected, we have an entire row of empties, we have an entire column of empties, and we have an extra empty here at index 1 in column B. Now, we added these together using the plus operator, but we can also use an arithmetic method to do this. This is the add method, and we're placing 2 arguments within here. The first argument is the sequence that we want to operate upon, and this second one is a fill value argument that helps us dealing with empty values. Let's first remove this second parameter and run this method without it. And as expected, we get the exact same output as we got from this equivalent plus operator. But if we put that second parameter back in and run this again, you'll see that all the empties have been filled. To explore how they've been filled, let's output df3 and df4 below here. All of this fill value attribute is saying is wherever we have an empty, put a 0 in there. We're going to have an empty here, and we're going to have an empty here and one here, and then along this entire bottom row of DataFrame 3 we're also going to have a non-matching values or empty values. So those are all going to be zeros, and additionally this empty value here is also going to be a 0. So let's see how this works. We're adding 0 plus 0 and we're getting 0. We're adding 1 plus 1 here and we're getting 2. We're adding 2 plus 2 here and we're getting 4. 3 plus 3 plus 3 right here. As expected, we're getting 6. But when we get to 4, here's 4, we don't have any corresponding value to add to from DataFrame 3. So this second parameter is simply telling our add method to use a 0 wherever it finds that empty. And of course you're going to see that down here too. Here is a value that has no partner, and so it adds a 0. Here is a 19 which has no partner, so it adds a 0. And finally here is a 6 which has no partner, so 6 plus 0 is 0. Moving on, but still talking about these arithmetic methods, interestingly, in pandas we can flip an arithmetic method simply by placing an R in front of the method's name. And let's demonstrate that down here with subtraction. So we can use the subtract operator, the minus sign, and we can subtract 2 from each value in our df3. So we can see it. So 0 minus 2 is negative 2. And 1 minus 2 is negative 1, and 2 minus 2 is a 0, and 3 minus 2 is 1. As we've already discovered with the add method, we can get the same result with the subtract method here. That's the same result. And yet, if we move our 2 to the other side of our data frame, say 2 minus instead, now we get 2 minus 0 is 2, and 2 minus 1 is 1, and 2 minus 2 is 0, and 2 minus 3 is minus 1. And how do we replicate that with our subtraction method? We could use this R to reverse our subtraction. Let's place an R in here and run that, and we get the same result. We could also use this with division. Divide by 2. Let's change this to our div method, and if we run this, we get 0 divided by 2. It says that that's 0. We get 1 divided by 2, which is 0.5. 2 divided by 2, which is 1, and 3 divided by 2, which is 1.5. And if we run this, we get the same result. But what happens if we move our 2 to the other side of this, and we say 2 divided by our data frame? We get infinity here, and then we get 2 divided by 1 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 3 divided by 2 is 0.66. We can get that same result with our reverse division method.